You're listening to the Brianna Christine podcast, inspiring designers to be strong in pursuing their passion. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brianna Christine podcast, episode number 5. Today, I'm going to talk about something really relevant to my life, and it's how do I get a job and dealing with uncertainty. So it was Thursday morning after a 7 a.m. jazzercise class. I was talking to a woman as the sun was coming up over San Marcos. The air was still cool outside. We had just finished a fun, intense workout and we were ready to face the day. We were discussing our plans. Both of us have recently transitioned out of the traditional workforce and we were looking for our next thing. I was telling her about my 1,000,001 plans for the day, and she tells me, I'm just going to take a break for now. I thought, for now? Like what? 6 hours? A whole day? A whole week? I know you don't have to do 1,000,001 things every day, but how long are you going to lose momentum before going on to the next thing? Sure, we need time to rest, but the sound of her voice made the statement sound almost indefinite. My confusion was, how can a woman clearly so determined to beat the sunrise and get the most intense part of her day finished before 8 a.m., how can that same woman be just content with cruising? Her thoughts and her actions didn't really seem to be lining up. Last week was the first time I aired my tagline, inspiring designers and other creatives to be strong in pursuing their passion. Emphasis here on being strong. It can be really difficult to face having your own business on your own, and that's why I'm here to come alongside you and show you that, there's more than one of us out there trying to pursue what we really love. And I like to bring the Bible into it because it's kind of like a roadmap. It's been passed down from generations, and there's lots of great quotes that maybe you don't realize come from the Bible that you hear later and you're like, hey, that kind of relates to Proverbs or something. Like, for instance, this Pinterest quote that I found: if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. Something that I found in Proverbs 16:26 that related was, it is good for workers to have an appetite. An empty stomach drives them on. Isn't this so true in our lives? Sometimes we don't want to be hungry, we don't want to feel lost, but being in that place is so motivating to just get out of that hole or wherever that place that we're in that we don't want to be. And it's just nice to have a reference of solid wisdom that has been passed down through the ages. And my thought is, if it wasn't good, they wouldn't have kept it. So what are we going to talk about today? Today, we are going to talk about setting a career goal specifically and letting people know that you are available and acting when it doesn't feel right. So this is really personal for me right now because I feel like I'm still looking for my thing. And let's be real, everyone needs work. On the first episode of this podcast, you might have heard me say that this show isn't about money. This show isn't about making money. It's about helping those of you who are listening to take you along in my journey. However, I still need money. It's just reality. And I've been talking about this with different creative people in different networking events that I've been going to. For instance, I went to the Creative Mornings in downtown San Diego the other day, and I received some wisdom from Matt, a designer and business owner that I met from Creative Priority. And I was telling him about how I'm trying to find my thing. And I just loved what he told me. He said, you don't find your place in design, you make your place. And so that really made me think, what am I doing to make my place? Am I being passive or active in my search and in my journey of being a creative business owner? How do we know? Where do we start? That's where we start with setting a career goal. It's good to take some time to learn what you want and to aim for that thing. And aim for that thing with all that you have before applying for your local diner. I know what it feels like. Sometimes I sit here thinking, am I going to have to go back to waitressing? And that's in the future, possibly. However, another girl that I met at a networking event who is also married was telling me that she's also trying to launch her creative business. And she had a discussion with her husband about how many months she could pursue doing her thing until she had to look for different work that was maybe less desirable. And I thought that was good. That was inspiring to me. And that's definitely something my husband and I are going to talk about at our next monthly finance meeting, which is something we do every month. It's good to be on the same page and say, hey, I know you're supportive of me, but at what point do we need to say, okay, we really wanted to make this work, but now it's time to look for something more sustainable. It's important to get your family, your spouse in on your goals so that you guys can make your goals together and make sure you're aiming for the same things. When you're on different pages, it can be counterproductive to you obtaining your goal. And it's good to maybe reach out to a couple people who have done what you're trying to do. And if you are blessed enough to meet someone who cares about you enough to give you advice about your goals and you consider them to have done something that you want to obtain, take that counsel, deeply consider it, and as long as it's in line with your vision and not their vision, maybe take some corrective action to your goal. So, 2 takeaways there. I know I kind of changed thoughts, but make sure you're on the same page with your spouse and then look for a direction from those who have obtained your goals. The next thing is to let people know you are available. This one might sound kind of obvious, but sometimes pride, like my pride, has definitely gotten in the way of me not wanting to tell people that I don't really have like a traditional job right now. It's learning to overcome that so people can't help you if they don't know that you need help, or people can't help you get to where you are if they don't realize that you have the opportunity to get to where you're trying to go. Maybe they think you still have your old job. But when you're letting people know that you are available, be careful with this. I've been making this mistake the past couple of weeks of sounding maybe a little bit too desperate. And I realized that nothing good was coming of this. But ever since I recognized it, I have begun to act more confident, and I've received more interview lineups. I'm really excited. I have some interviews from other creative business owners or other creatives in the industry lined up for you guys. That'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. And I have a couple prospective job opportunities. So tell people who you are, be positive, say, hey, I'm independent, but I'm looking for more opportunities. I love what I do, but I'm looking to grow. Even though it's hard not to sound desperate, try to fight yourself. I have to fight myself from saying, I'm happy to be independent, and I'm terrified I might have to go back to waitressing. The thing you want to remember here is you attract what you put out. So when you act desperate, you can attract desperate clients. When you display confidence, you can attract confident clients. The next thing on the list is to act even when it doesn't feel right. Sometimes when you are trying to make your own business, it can feel pointless if you're not seeing results as wanted. And when it feels pointless, it's good to recognize that feeling. Maybe consult a good friend if they're available. But once you recognize it, keep going. You don't want to lose momentum or give up. Sometimes what I do is I just write down how I'm feeling really quick, and a thought will come into my head and I'll go, oh yeah, I forgot. I'm doing this because I like it. And then I'm more motivated to keep going. A question you might be asking yourself is, how do I know if I'm doing the right things? And my answer is, you don't always know. You just try to make sure you're evaluating your actions and then making any adjustments as necessary. For instance, are you applying for jobs? I know that sounds really obvious, but evaluate if you're applying for enough jobs, or are you applying to too many jobs and you're not taking the proper time to make your cover letter personal enough for the places that you apply. I have a couple things in my cover letter that are standard in each one, but then for each company, I will play my strengths to whatever specific position I'm applying for. For instance, I was applying for a motion designer job, so I focus a little bit more on what experience I have in motion design and video editing. But then for a web development job, I would change that wording to play my strengths of whatever web development experience that I have. So I make sure to take the time, if I'm going to apply for a job, that I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm not just going to send a standard letter to every single agency. Maybe you feel like it shouldn't feel this hard, but marketing yourself as frequently as possible shows you're a responsible leader who takes action and makes things happen. You don't want to let life happen to you. You want to do everything you can to create the life that you want to live. After all, that's the point of having your own business, right? Something interesting I studied in Exodus 14:13 through 15 was Moses was saying to his people as he was leading them out of Egypt, "Don't be anxious, God will save you." And God replies to Moses, "Why are you crying to me? Get moving and divide the sea." And I thought this was really interesting because God gave Moses everything he needed to lead his people, but he was kind of sitting back and saying, "Don't worry, something will happen." And God's like, yeah, something will happen when you use the tools that I gave you. So the point here is to use whatever tools and resources that you have developed or that you've been given through experience. Use those tools wisely. People might not respond to you the way that you want them to, but you keep doing that because you know it's the right thing to do. If you are not sure if you are getting distracted or if you are falling off course, I have a list of questions here that you can ask yourself when you're not sure. So some things you would want to consider, write these down if you can. What is my goal for my job and my career? If you haven't written this down before, it's good to just have it on paper so you can reference it anytime you feel lost. Then ask yourself when you're trying to decide what actions to take throughout the day, is this action in line with my goal, and how is it bringing me closer to my goal? Then, if you feel like this action is in line with your goal and it's bringing you closer in some way, ask yourself, do I need to focus on this right now? Maybe there's something else that you need to be focusing on. Can you possibly write this thought down and save it for a later time because something else might be of higher priority? Or maybe the timing isn't right for this thought. That happens to me all the time. I have a whiteboard in my studio that I just write distracting ideas for later, and I just add things to the list as I'm going throughout my day because sometimes I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, and naturally I want to act on it, but lately I've been becoming more in the habit of just writing those things down, saving them for later, and then I realize the next day, oh wow, I'm so glad I didn't pursue that. That was not important. That leads me to my next question. Is there something more important that I should be doing? And am I letting distractions take over me even though I should be doing this? So find out what those distractions are. If that's the case, say no to them, move forward. And the last thing you want to ask yourself is, can I afford this? Sometimes we're making decisions on whether or not to buy a certain product, and you just want to make sure that you can afford whatever option you're looking at. And if you're married, that you're on the same page with your spouse if you're going to purchase it. So in summary, today we have talked about setting a career goal, letting people know when you are available, and acting even when it doesn't feel right or it feels too hard. My takeaway for you today is that there is no secret to getting a job. Of all the people I've talked to, all the designers in San Diego that I've met, there's no one way that everybody gets a job and it works every time. Sometimes it takes a couple of times to learn what is right, but realistically, I've been bringing you guys almost the same message for almost 3 weeks in a row, but I feel like every time I bring it to you, I'm perfecting it in some way, and that makes it fun and hopefully more relevant and more helpful to you guys. Another thing is when you can evaluate and redirect your energy, it shows competency. Proverbs 22:29 says, "Do you see any truly competent workers? They will serve kings rather than ordinary people." So if your business goals aren't inspiring enough, that proverb is pretty inspiring to me. I want to serve kings rather than ordinary people. And my call to action to you guys today is stay proactive. Follow up with anybody that you've made contact with. Sometimes you got to give a couple weeks in between, but you might find that people were too busy to follow up with you the first week. And do everything you can to keep that momentum going. Thanks for joining me today. And if you like this show, please subscribe. And I'll see you on the next episode.